Hey everyone, it's Ashley and I'm back with another video, and this time I wanted to create kind of a companion piece to the DIY Christmas ornament tutorial, and I wanted to show you kind of a more creative, fun version of the first ornament. And the first ornament that I made was this type, but I just want to show you how you can actually change this up completely and make it customized to, like, if you have a favorite theme. And for the theme that I'm using for this one is actually going to be a present for a friend. And she really loves the Nightmare Before Christmas, so I'm going with kind of a Jack Skellington type of themed ornament. So I'll show you guys how to make this, and it's actually quite simple. It's just a little bit time consuming with the embroidery part. So the first things that you're going to want is some type of marking tool, and this is a disappearing ink fabric marker, and this one disappears after about 24 hours, so it's definitely very handy. You're also going to need some white felt, and you're going to want a pretty good size amount, probably about, a quarter yard for a few ornaments. You're also going to need some scissors and some fabric, and it doesn't have to be huge. Some type of template that's circular. I'm using a canning ring, and also some stuffing. You will also need some embroidery thread, and I'm choosing black, particularly because that's the colors that he's basically white and black on his face. And then you also need an embroidery needle, and they're usually ones that have bigger eyes on the head here. I don't know if you guys can see it, so it just makes it easier to thread through. And you'll also need some sort of string to actually hold the ornament up, and a button if you want to embellish it. If not, no biggie. But I will go ahead and show you the first step, and the first step is kind of the same thing that you do with the other one, but in this case what you're going to do is, let me see if I can tilt this down just a smidgen. What you're going to do is take your lid here, and you're going to draw yourself a little circle, because this is basically going to be the outline of his face, and you're going to be freehanding kind of a little face on here, so it really helps to have the guidance of a little ring there. And I just finished that, so you can see, and you don't have to worry about it being permanent. Most of these will disappear with either cold or just time, like 24 hours they disappear. And then on this one, you're going to want to use the reverse side of the fabric and do the same thing. You're going to want to draw a circle on it to match, essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the next step would be on this is to actually, you can cut out the circle for the fabric. The felt one you're going to leave alone until you get towards the end, because you want the extra space for when you're doing your embroidery. So we have the face here, the circular face, and the next step is going to be to draw the actual, face in. And what I did is I looked online and I looked at pictures of Jack, and there's like 2 or 3 different faces that he has throughout the movie, and I picked this one particular because I thought it was a really good, kind of a cheerful looking one. So you can pick, whatever type of design that you can find online, to fit your theme, essentially, and then you just draw it in that section. So what I do is I'm just doing like a rough kind of outline here, and I can follow essentially the shape of what I know his eyes look like. They're kind of slightly off-center egg shapes. This one's a little bit pointier. And then what you're going to do is draw on some of the nostrils and that one. And then you're going to create kind of the line. You follow the line along the bottom here. So we know it goes up pretty high. And the nice thing about disappearing ink markers is if you make a mistake, it's okay, it won't show up. You just have to make sure that you actually do the embellishments before you run out of time. And if you pay attention to his mouth, he has a lot of irregular types of stitching, so it's okay if you mess up a little bit because it actually looks more authentic. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of sketch in some of the little details that I found. And there's a lot of clip art and things online too that you can find that's has pictures of him particularly. Okay, so I went ahead and did the rough sketch here, as you can see. And the next step on this is to actually use you're going to take your embroidery needle and your thread, and when you do embroidery, for this particular one I only use 2 different types of stitches. So the first thing you're going to do is actually thread this needle and tie a knot, and I'll show you guys that. Okay guys, so the first step is you take your 6 strands of embroidery floss. It usually comes in a 6-strand amount, and usually you can take it down to fewer amounts, but because this is such a kind of a contrasting palette that we're working with, I'm going to keep it at 6 strand. And basically what you're going to do is run it through and leave a little tail there, and then at the very end you are going to knot it. And if you guys aren't sure about knotting, all you do is just wrap it around your finger twice, and then it looks like that. You're going to bring that little section forward and then pinch it, and then just roll the actual bits over it, and then you can pinch it and roll it backwards, and you have a little knot at the end, and that keeps what you're working on secure. So also you're going to want to work with a length of around 18 inches. For embroidery, it can tend to fray if you go anything longer than that, and if it's too short, then you end up having to redo your floss all the time. So the first step I'm going to teach you is how to do his mouth, and I'm just going to start at the corner here, and I'm going to pull the needle through. And the first thing I'm going to show you is called a back stitch, and a back stitch is actually very simple, and it's really great outlining stitch. So the first thing you do is you come through your fabric, and the first step is just like a normal stitch. So you're going to take your stitch where you go straight in front of it, and you just bring it back down. And then what you're going to do is, as a back stitch, is you take a step ahead. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you take a nice jump ahead, and then you work backwards. So you're ahead a bit, and there's a little gap, and you go and you fill in the gap, and you go straight back to the front section that you started. So you bring that back down, and then you bring it back up again with just that little jump in between, and you bring it back down again. So basically it's just a very quick outlining stitch, and as you see there's these little parts here. It's okay to actually go back a little bit and pick those back up. So you make a little outlining spot, and then you go backwards. And sometimes they do not, so just be careful to pull it back out, and it'll go right back in. And then we're going to come up to the top here, and work backwards again. So you go straight down, just like that. So for the mouth particularly, I use that stitch, and I just finish that all the way through. And then when I get to the eyes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to outline those lines, and the nose as well, I'm going to outline those, and then I switch to a different stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and outline one of the eyes, and then I'll show you how to work from there. Okay, so I have the outline of the eye done, and basically the stitch that I'm going to teach you how to do is called a satin stitch. And a satin stitch tends to be a very straightforward type of stitch, but it's kind of time consuming, so it's usually used to be a kind of like a filler for a particular area. So when you're doing a satin stitch, usually what you're going to do is start at the top and bring your stitch from up here all the way across, and you'll just continue it along in lines. But I'm going to show you straight from the middle just because I think it'll give you a better idea. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring up your needle near the edge here, and you're going to just bring it straight up, and then you're going to take your line straight across all the way to the other edge, and you're just going to bring it back down. And usually, we start at the top with this, but I'll just show you this way since you get a better visual. And to do this, you go back again right underneath where you started on the other side, and you just bring it straight back up, and you have to make sure you keep it as flat as possible, and then you bring it back down that way. And you just keep doing this for several stitches, and what it does is it creates this really, lovely kind of finish, so it doesn't, it doesn't have any breaks in the stitching, so it just looks like a very colored in area, which is good because you want a really opaque look for Jack particularly. And this is what the finished one looks like when you finish the ends. And you can see it's got kind of just these lines right along here, and it has a very smooth finish. So that's what it looks like when it's done. And when you get to this step, then what you're going to do is continue creating this in the same way that you would create the other ornaments that I've already shown you. So what you do is you take your circle, and I'll go ahead and I still need to cut that out and I'll show you. Okay guys, after you get your circle cut out, what you do is you put it on the back lined up with the front of the face, and then you pin it basically so it'll stay put. You pin it right in the middle, and then what you'll do is the same steps that you take normally for the Christmas ornament tutorial, where you just start near the top and you zigzag stitch all the way around, leaving a gap so that you can fill it. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that and fill it, and then I will show you what it looks like. Okay guys, so what I did is I took the ornament and I finished stuffing and sewing it, and then I added the ribbon to it and I hand sewed a button on it. And so as you can see, it's kind of double-sided. You can have it facing that way or facing that way, just depending on what you feel like. And I know there's some purple ring around here, but that's going to actually dissipate within the next day. So it's pretty much done now. So if you guys have any questions, or you want to see a more detailed version of actually how to sew the ornaments themselves, you can see my link down below for my first tutorial. And this is just kind of like an update to that actual tutorial with, you know, more embellishment. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!